Hi everyone. Today I'm going to discuss this question. Now let's look at the question. Two boys, Caleb and Isaac, were holding two similar basketballs. They released the basketballs gently from under their hands to let them drop to the ground naturally. Whose basketball will make a louder sound when dropped to the ground? Explain your answer. Now, at first glance, when we look at this question, now some of us may think that, oh, that's simple. Uh, well, if I just look at the two boys, what's your difference? Okay, there's only one change variable, okay, because it's not the basketball, because the question says that it is the basketballs are similar, all right? And the way that they released is similar because they said just let the balls drop to the ground naturally. So the only thing that I can see from this diagram maybe is that Isaac seems taller than Caleb. So at first glance, now many of us would tend to just go back to common sense and just say that, well, of course, Isaac's basketball will make a louder sound. Now, how do we explain that? Well, that is right. Isaac's basketball will make a louder sound. But how do you explain that? Now, since we're talking about a science question here, we can't just say, oh, that's because Isaac is taller. Full stop. You see, that's the thing is that is common sense. We say that he's taller, but how do we relate the point of him being taller to something that is a scientific concept here, relating to how then it is related to sound energy? Okay, so that's the thing that we really want to discuss today. Now, first, what is the science concept here? That's very, very important to identify that it is talking about energy conversion. Okay, the question clearly says which basketball will make a louder sound. Now, sound is a form of energy. Okay, now when the balls are released and it dropped to the ground, there is a change in the energy. The forms of energy have been converted. When the two boys were holding the balls uh, with their hands, it doesn't have sound energy, right? So while it's still stationary in your hands, the ball does possess some kind of energy. And what kind of energy is that? It's actually potential energy. Potential energy basically is we can recap the concept is stored energy. All right, it has not been released yet, it's not moving, it's potential. But in this case, we can see that they were holding the balls at a certain height above the ground from the diagram. Now, so what form of potential energy will that be then? All right, if we could recall, potential energy has got different forms, right? It could be elastic potential energy, all right, chemical potential energy, but in this case, it's clearly not any of those two. All right, it is certainly gravitational potential energy. Gravitational potential energy, as we could recall, is talking about potential energy that's stored when it is at a height above the ground. Now, when they release the balls, the potential energy is then converted to kinetic energy. Kinetic energy is a movement, all right? It's talking about how the stored energy change to movement because the balls travel downwards. It is certainly moving. So there is a change or conversion to kinetic energy. When it finally touches the ground, it gives off a certain sound. So it is converted, the kinetic energy then converted to sound energy. Now, in this case here, okay, to just for the sake of this question, we're just going to make it very simplified. Um, just talking about these three forms of energy. Actually, all right, there could be other forms of energy, because we know that when anything comes into contact, when surfaces comes into contact with one another, there is also heat energy being released. Heat energy, because there's friction, right? Frictional force, which results in heat energy. Now, but we're not going to focus on that because the question is clearly just asking about sound. Okay, so once we get this clear, then let's look at the next point here. Now, in this case here, okay, they are asking whose basketball will make a greater sound. Now, so since there is a difference in the sound energy that's produced, the difference must come from a change variable. So looking at the diagram, it's quite obvious that the change variable here, as we have already mentioned, is the height difference. All right. Caleb is taller than, Isaac is taller than Caleb. So there's a height difference. So the height difference will affect gravitational potential energy. Okay. So that means there's more gravitational potential energy. And the relationship is the greater the height, the greater the gravitational potential energy. So establish that fact first. Now, with then that in mind, how will the change lead to difference in sound? Okay, so just now we mentioned Isaac's basketball has got greater gravitational potential energy. That means if you have more gravitational potential energy, that means it will convert to greater kinetic energy first, and then it will also convert to greater sound energy. Okay, now notice the sequence. It is greater potential energy convert to greater kinetic energy, and from greater kinetic energy it will then convert to greater sound energy. Okay, now, so how would we explain this using science concept of energy conversion? First, okay, answer the question to the point. Isaac's basketball will make a louder sound. Okay, the way we explain this, we will say the basketball that Isaac is holding has more gravitational potential energy, and that means it will convert to more kinetic energy as the ball falls. But when the ball dropped to the ground, more kinetic energy is then converted to more sound energy. Now, a note of caution here, as I mentioned before, when you explain it, be very clear and precise in the way, the order, the order in which the energy is being converted. Okay? Do not say things like this. That is very, very sweeping statement to say, oh, because his basketball has got more gravitational potential energy, which means it has more kinetic energy and more sound energy. Now, you see, if you just lump it all together, it's not very clear how the sequence takes place. So you must mention that it's more GP convert to more KE, more kinetic energy, and from more KE, it converts to more sound energy. All right. I hope this has been clear to you. All right. Thank you very much.